Now, all of you know very well, in the last 3 decades, a lot of research has gone into this probiotics, and now we have conclusive evidence that probiotics indeed is very essential for immune regulation, protective function from pathogens, trophic functions, and also metabolic functions. But in the last few years, quite a few research has gone into lifestyle disorders. Now we'll take a quick run through these studies, and I'll tell you about one small trial conducted at NIM. Now, what are the lifestyle-related diseases? This metabolic syndrome is characterized by central obesity, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and also the metabolism of insulin and glucose is altered. And this metabolic syndrome increases the risk of type 2 diabetes and also cardiovascular diseases. But apart from this, lifestyle-related diseases also include joint pain, sleep disorders, and psychological disturbances. Now, though this metabolic syndrome is very common in India, quite a few studies have shown that a third of Indian population in India have metabolic syndrome features. None of us get investigated for these. And though we know that individuals with metabolic syndrome have 4-fold increase or 3 to 4-fold increased risk of dying from cardiovascular diseases. Nevertheless, we don't get investigated for these features. Now, the overall prevalence of insulin resistance in India is quite high, as you see there. Then, different studies from India has also shown that obesity and overweight is quite highly prevalent, even in young college-going girls and boys. Then, of course, in adults. And a study at NIM also showed that prevalence of insulin resistance is at the rate of 43% in young adults. So now let's see if there is a link between gut bacteria and some of these features of metabolic syndrome. Take, for instance, obesity, central adiposity, insulin resistance, etc. So now the first study linking weight gain and adiposity came from this study by Eckert et al. Then this he conducted on germ-free mice. Compared with conventional mice. Already the earlier speaker told you about this. Germ-free mice, in the sense not even a single bacteria or any microbe will be there on the surface, skin surface or mucosal surface of this animal. It's totally free of bacteria or viruses or yeast. So germ-free animals experience poor growth, and there will be atrophy of mucosal epithelial cells, and they also experience poor resistance to infection and poor development of immune function. And transfer of microbiota from conventionally raised mice improves the growth rate and weight gain in these animals, showing that definitely the gut bacteria is linked with weight gain and adiposity. Now, we know very well that high-fat diet results in obesity. Now, let's see if there is any link with high-fat diet and gut bacteria and gain in weight gain and obesity. Now, this study here clearly shows that high-fat feeding induces metabolic endotoxemia and also changes in intestinal gut bacteria. Here, when there is high-fat feeding in these animals, there was decrease in beneficial bacteria, say for instance bifidobacteria, and increase in gram-negative Enterobacteria group. Increase in gram-negative bacteria group is also linked with endotoxemia. Endotoxemia, in the sense, it is nothing but lipopolysaccharide, that is, the cell wall component of gram-negative bacteria. Whenever there is high-fat feeding or high-calorie diet ingestion, there is decrease in beneficial bacteria, increase in gram-negative bacteria. When there is decrease in beneficial bacteria, it has been shown by some in vitro experiments and also by animal experiments that the intestinal integrity is lost. This loss in intestinal integrity leads to seeping of cell wall component of gram-negative bacteria into the circulation. So this cell wall component is nothing but it is an endotoxin, also called lipopolysaccharide, which will stimulate inflammatory response. So this is the story with high-fat feeding and its relationship with gut bacteria. Now let us see if this relationship between high-fat and changes in gut bacteria will also be linked with insulin resistance and other features of metabolic syndrome. Now here, chronic experimental metabolic endotoxemia induces obesity, diabetes, and insulin resistance. So altered gut bacteria has also been linked with insulin resistance. Not only that, here they have shown not just whether it is just due to high fat feeding, is it just an association, or will there be any effect on obesity and insulin resistance if lipopolysaccharide is directly injected. So here there you see the first one, control mice versus high fat feeding. When there is increase in obesity and insulin resistance, even lipopolysaccharide injection directly subcutaneously, chronic injection of lipopolysaccharide also resulted in similar features like high fat feeding, showing that high fat feeding is not enough to induce obesity, inflammation, obesity and insulin resistance. Here again, to demonstrate the causal link between bacteria and obesity, they have conducted experiment on CD14 knockout mice. CD14 is nothing but a receptor that interacts with lipopolysaccharide, that is a cell wall component of gram-negative bacteria. When knockout mice were used, LPS injection or high fat feeding did not induce any change. This is showing a causal link between CD14, its interaction with lipopolysaccharide, and the resulting features like inflammation and obesity. Again showing that this is also linked with central adiposity, insulin resistance, etc. Now this is the summary of this finding. Consumption of high fat feeding, high carb or saturated oils will decrease your beneficial bacteria, increase your pathogenic bacteria, and thereby the intestinal epithelial cell integrity is lost. Pathogenic bacteria cell wall, that is endotoxin or lipopolysaccharide, will seep into the circulation, thus resulting in endotoxemia, which stimulates inflammation, which is also called metabolic endotoxemia. This will result in high inflammatory cytokines, which again precedes the development of insulin resistance and other features of metabolic syndrome, which increase the risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. Again, of all the beneficial bacteria, which bacteria will be very closely related to these features? The experiments show it is bifidobacteria which decreases endotoxemia. As bifidobacteria decreases, the levels of endotoxemia increases, showing that it improves the intestinal integrity and also it decreases gram-negative bacteria in the intestine. Again, bifidobacteria decreases blood glucose and fasting insulin levels, showing again it improves insulin resistance. So for all the beneficial bacteria, bifidobacteria has been shown to be working well. Then, of course, it's also related to the low body weight and visceral fat. Now here, the study I will skip. Now, a number of studies, animal experiments and in vitro studies have been done by different groups with probiotics and a few studies with prebiotics as well. And most of these studies have shown that obesity, central adiposity and insulin resistant features are all connected with gut bacteria. Now, we at NIN conducted two clinical trials, one in overweight and obese subjects and one on young adults. Now, supplementation of these bacteria for 6 weeks resulted in good colonization by RAPD analysis, and VSL-3 supplementation did have significant effect on HSCRP. However, it had similar effect on IL-1 beta, though it did not have effect on TNF alpha or IL-6. Similarly, the other bacteria also showed significant decrease in C-reactive protein. Then the fasting glucose and fasting insulin also decreased significantly in 6-week supplementation with this lactobacilli and bifidobacteria combination, and there was improved insulin sensitivity in these overweight and obese individuals. Similarly, the other bacteria, single bacteria which was supplemented, also showed decreased fasting insulin and fasting glucose level and improvement in insulin level and improvement in insulin sensitivity. However, most of these features were more pronounced when probiotic was combined with prebiotics. This is again on lipid profile, VSL-3. You see there is significant increase in HDL concentration and significant decrease in the bad cholesterol, and therefore lipid regulation was seen with this VSL-3 supplementation. Similarly, with other probiotics also we observed a similar change in lipid profile. However, the effect was more pronounced when probiotic was combined with prebiotic. Now, we also observed in a small experiment at NIN that those lactobacilli which contain this bile salt hydrolase enzyme has to be more effective in regulating lipid profile. However, the probiotic bacteria, lactobacilli, which does not have this enzyme, is not effective in regulating lipid profile. So the major findings are these bacteria improved insulin sensitivity, regulated lipid profile, decreased HSCRP, IL-1 beta, though did not have effect on other cytokines, decreased body weight, though it was for a short period. There was significant decrease in body weight. It modulated gut flora by increasing the number of lactic acid bacteria and decreasing gram-negative bacteria. These effects were more pronounced when probiotic was combined with prebiotic FOS. Now, another feature is, like all this metabolic syndrome features were significantly associated with inflammatory markers like CRP, TNF-alpha, IL-6, IL-1 beta, showing that high-fat feeding alters gut flora, induces systemic inflammation, and this probably precedes insulin resistance and the following disorders like lipid profile dysregulation, etc. Now, if inflammation in systemic circulation has been known to be at the heart of most of the chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, CVD, all of you know very well, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, psychological disorders, etc. However, now, one or two studies are there showing that high-fat feeding can indeed induce intrauterine inflammation as well. At NIN, we have done a study on intrauterine inflammation which showed that 29% of the women have subclinical intrauterine inflammation. And if this inflammation has some effects, has some programming effect on the fetus, it is something to be worried about. Now, this study here I projected showed that high-fat feeding during pregnancy induces intrauterine inflammation, and this intrauterine inflammation induces the mesenchymal stem cells to differentiate into adipocytes rather than to skeletal myogenic cells. And also, it induces adipocyte deposition into the skeletal muscle. Animal experiments have shown. So now we have a situation where inflammation is known to be at the heart of all the diseases in adults, and here intrauterine inflammation also might be programming the fetus for early onset of adult disease. Now, if inflammation can program, do we have a situation where probiotics or prebiotics, if supplemented during pregnancy, can program the fetus and probably prevent these things? Yes, the strongest link comes with supplementation studies that showed that probiotics might, supplementation studies which showed that when probiotics are supplemented during pregnancy, it controls atopy in children. When pregnant women were supplemented during the last trimester and maybe after that postnatal, the newborns born to these mothers were protected from atopic allergy at the age of 2 and even at the age of 4. This is the strongest link showing that probiotic supplemented during pregnancy can probably have immunoprogramming effect in the fetus, which might benefit at large. So identify those epigenetically regulated or inflammatory genes in humans that link early nutrition and bacterial exposure with adult chronic disease. Thank you.